Rafael, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I am doing great, Dan. Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on. I know you have your hands on a lot of stuff. You do wholesaling, flipping, coaching, own a real estate brokerage. Why don't you give folks a quick version of your bio and how you got involved in so many different interesting things?
Dan, I got involved in real estate in 2009. Before then, I had a different company. I launched a non-emergency medical transportation business, which is a wheelchair and a stretcher patient transport business, in 2007. And before then, I was a fireman. So I jumped into real estate investments in 2009 and started doing the typical, what can I do with some side cash that I have?
Mm.
And came across a rehab because I used to do construction back in high school, and I've always been active that way. So I ended up putting some money into a fix and flip project. I made it out with my life. It was one of those things that it was a more of a learning lesson than a profitable lesson, but I didn't lose on it, so that was a good thing. I almost broke even. And then from that point forward, I mean, I came across wholesaling, which is my one of my favorite strategies, honestly, for wealth generation. And then I still have that ongoing fix and flip business. I'm a real estate broker now, and I own a brokerage in Phoenix. So a lot of my agents do fix and flip, real estate investments type of stuff, and it just kind of I was able to build this whole ecosystem of supporting companies. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Interesting. It's what I find interesting is how many people start off in real estate or wholesaling or investing, and it's like a side hustle, right? Or something they thought they would do on the side, and then it blows up and it gets like bigger than everything else they were doing ever.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to see that, man, because usually you come across, like, I fell into it by accident. Honestly, I was having a conversation with somebody, and then I think like 60 or $70,000 that I wanted to allocate somewhere, and they're like, "Well, why don't you just buy a house and then flip it?" All right. So the conversation kind of came to me, and I started looking for properties. I came across this one dude's emailing campaign, and he sold me my first. So he was a wholesaler. He actually co-wholesale that property. He wasn't even his. He co-wholesaled it, and I bought it. So, and then I look at the guy. The guy made, I think that guy made $8,000 on it, and then the actual wholesaler made another 10. So I paid 18K over, right? But I got the property, and it just kind of came to me. And after I was looking at the settlement statements and just kind of looking at all the fees and whatnot, I didn't understand 99% of that, but later I found out those were assignment fees. So it just, breaking into one thing is going to unravel something else, like the next step, really. Like that's how it kind of went for me.
How long did it take to go from side hustle to main, main money producer for you?
So, well, I mean, now it's one of my backbone companies right now, but for the longest time, it was just me doing it. So I didn't realize that you can actually automate this. You can actually build a wholesaling business and run it like a business. Run it with KPIs and have systematic approach to it, a whole business model, have accountability for the team and all that. So to put it all together, it did take me a couple of years. It was more along the lines of that mindset. I really had a fixed mindset about it when it came to wholesaling. Wholesaling in my head for the longest time, it was just like, it's what you do when you're a solopreneur, when you're self-employed, right?
Right.
Because I ended up selling, well, I started doing it on the side when I still had the other business. So, I would come across deals here and there and whatnot. And then that habit just kind of formed. And after I sold my business, I was still doing it the same way until I became my own bottleneck. So it did take a couple of years, man, to figure out how to plug people into it, really break it down into a systematic process. During that time too, I was also working on my second master's degree in business psychology, and that helped a lot just to get perspective on the whole business model and how to put it all together. So I mean,
How did that help you?
Well, it's one. you have a better understanding of how the whole business process works, right? It's people and systems. It's not always just people or not always just systems. You can have the best, operating system in the world, but if your people suck, it's not going to work, and vice versa, right? So when I was going through that, one of the things that just kind of became keen, it was the fact that you have to have this collaboration. You have to have the synergy between the people and then the actual system that you have in place, right? And how do they operate and mesh together? So understanding that point, I started crafting, hiring after behavioral strengths, as opposed to just anybody who had a pulse, bring him into the company and then create a role for that person. So I broke down, the whole process into 6 different steps, and it became the business model for my wholesaling business. So now I run the wholesale operation on 90-minute meetings a week. So it works well. Yeah.
I like how you recognize that the lone wholesaler out there is self-employed. You don't have a business really, and a lot of real estate agents as well struggle with that, or don't even realize they're there. So let's talk about the transition of actually hiring out, building a team, and making the transition from self-employed to business owner.
It's progressive. I think you have to know enough about every area just to be dangerous in it. You don't have to become an expert. It's number one, right? You don't have to be the expert lead generator. You don't have to be the expert closer. You don't have to be the expert, dispositions rep. You don't. You just gotta have enough knowledge about each one of those fields to the point where you're able to plug people into it. So if you want, I can give you like a breakdown of the actual blueprint is, but I break it down into 6 different steps. So, and this actually transfers well to traditional real estate. We have a similar model. My agents have a similar model to the one I have in my wholesale business. So, the step number 1 or stage number 1 is sourcing, right? You're always, you want to source the leads. You don't call it marketing. You don't call it anything else. You're not pre-qualifying. You're just sourcing. Basically, you're looking for people who raise their hand and they want to be somewhat of a candidate for you to have a conversation with. You're just sourcing. For that, you can get cold callers. You have pay-per-click campaigns. You have SMS campaigns. You have different avenues for outreach, right? And then the next stage is converting. This is where you actually begin to pre-qualify. So what happens, just so you have a kind of like a picture of what my lead generation process looks like, we have sourcing, we have cold callers, and all they do is gauge for interest. Somebody raises their hand, they say yes, they click a button, and it sends them over to my lead manager. And that's the conversion process. When they're in that second stage, they go through a pre-qualification process. My lead manager is having a conversation with them. We're trying to figure out whether or not they're a good fit for us to work with them and provide a solution based on certain qualifiers. We qualify based on condition, timeline, motivation, and then the price. Those 4, 3 out of 4, it's a prospect, right? So at that point, they're still leads. If they qualify, 3 out of 4 is a prospect, they move on, and then my lead manager sends them over to the next step, which is the acquisitions. That's where my acquisition reps live. And they come in, they have a discovery conversation, they start to analyze the deal, really look at the numbers, but nothing, like nobody's ready to having a conversation before they even get to that point. And if you kind of transfer those first 3 steps over to traditional sales, you're going to see the same thing. Right. We, as agents, we have to, source the properties. We have to convert and make sure that, the pre-qualification process is there before we even start spending time with these people, and then taking them out to see properties out there, really spending time with a lot of dead leads that are not going to go anywhere. Right. And then you go to the acquisitions, which is a listing appointment. And then the 4th stage is the disposition. So now you have a contract in place. You got to move it, right? So you push it out to your buyers list on the wholesale side of things, and it just it makes sense to have this process in place, because now you know where to plug people into it. So even if you're a solopreneur, one thing I always say is, like, even if you're a solopreneur, figure out where the stages of your process are, of your business. Like what's your method to it, right? Because It doesn't mean that you're going to plug 17 people into it, but it means that you're going to break it down in a way that you understand what phase of the monetization of that lead you're in.
Well, and you still have those stages. You just don't have the people to do them, so you have to do every single one of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And at least knowing and recognizing what the stages are, then you can start measuring it, and that's the only way you're going to know to get better. And when you do, bring on some smart people to help you, that you can plug them in and have a little bit better definition of what you need from them.
Yeah, absolutely. You capitalize on the talent. You capitalize on the talent that you bring. You let them do their thing because you're paying them for it. And then you improve like as a whole. There's only so many things that we're going to be able to look at, right? As business owners or as entrepreneurs, we have this set of perspective, or this set perspective of how the business looks and how it works. But when you bring somebody else in, they're going to have a completely different behavioral, outlook on things. And they're going to be able to see the business in different things. Like, for example, my director of operations, he's an engineer. He's a civil engineer. That's his career. He left civil engineering to come work in my company. And he's able to catch like all the little details and the intricacies that I miss because I have that 50-foot view. Right. So it's important to understand that as you're building the business, and that's really how you get out of the hustle. Now, most businesses out there in our space, I mean, I feel like they stop at the disposition. Once they get paid, they get that settlement statement, they get that wire into the bank account, they move on to the next deal. Right. But I think that the last two steps in the process are the most important, which is step 5 is to measure. That's where you track the KPIs, you figure out where the leads came from, you figure out what your cost per lead is, what cost per prospect, your average revenue per deal, that sort of thing. So you can come in and actually pinpoint where you can ramp it up to get more results, right? If you don't track, you don't know where your results are coming from. So you compile all of that data. We track every single week. We have that 90-minute meeting I'm telling you about, and we break it all down. Like, we'll go through the scorecard, we'll go through the performance of each one of the employees, and I mean at a management level, and really break it all down, see where we're at, deficiencies. At that point, when you have it all laid out like that, it's hard to not be accountable for things. Now, the cool thing is, once you have all that information, you have that collaboration from the team. You go to step 6, which is improve. You have improvement sessions. And okay, cool. What could we have done better on this particular deal? What could we have done better on that particular marketing campaign? Okay, what happened here that we left money on the table, and how can we stop that next time? Sort of thing. So it's six different stages, and I think it really creates a well-rounded approach to getting out of that hustle space into the business ownership space.
Yeah, I think that's an important concept. This hustle porn idea has just been oversold by a lot of influencers. And yes, hard work is important. And yes, when you're starting up, you might have to have those sleepless nights, when you're making the transition. But it shouldn't last forever. You should figure out at some point how to systemize it, make a business out of it, have these improvement sessions. How do you do the improvement sessions, and how often do you do them, and what do they look like?
So the improvement sessions, I sit down with my director of operations, and we'll do an x-ray of the whole company. So we'll do an x-ray of the whole company. We have smaller improvement sessions on a week-to-week basis when we're looking at individual deals, right? Okay, how did this deal went? And we actually break it down like if that one deal was one particular business. Okay, so this is what happened. Those were the KPIs for that deal. It came from a PPC campaign. We're spending $20,000 in PPC, so that brings our average revenue per deal to blank, and we're fine tuning that step process. So tomorrow, if we have a $50,000 budget, we know where to allocate it to get the most bottom line revenue. So that's one way, right? At a business level, we have company improvement meetings quarterly. So we'll come in and we'll set up quarter benchmarks, and this is where we're at. This is what happened last quarter. And one thing that we do that I like implementing is the theme. So we'll pick a theme every quarter, meaning that, okay, the theme this quarter, it's going to be consistency. Okay, so we'll figure out, on where we're needing consistency, and we'll stay consistent for that quarter. What happens is that psychologically we have around 90 days of it takes about 90 days to build habits, right, at an individual level. And if you take that, you can actually take those across your company and then create those habits within the company. So every quarter we're building a new habit. We're focusing on something that's going to create a theme for that quarter, and then just improve on the company as a whole. So that's part of the improvement process as well. And I think it's one of the biggest things really that helps, because for example, we've had themes of where the focus is bottom line revenue increase, right? Instead of increasing the number of deals, we're focusing on increasing the average revenue per deal. How do we do that? How do we drop overhead? So yeah, there's multiple ways of going about it. If I do have a PDF. I can give you your audience a link to if they want it.
Yeah. What is that link, or what should they use?
Go to REIwholesaling.com. And you're going to be able to download a PDF, and it's got the 6 steps, the breakdown, and kind of what to look for, from a superficial standpoint, what to look for at each one of the stages. So what do you look for in the sourcing stage? What do you look for in the conversion, acquisition, dispositions, measuring the improvement phase as well?
That's awesome. Can you say the link again, just in case people are listening?
REIwholesaling.com.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you've got a really scientific process down of how to systemize, measure, and improve. And I know you own a brokerage. We've got a lot of real estate listeners on this show. If there's a solo agent out there, doing 5, 10, 15 million in sales, which solo agents can do, even more, some of them, what's the first step they need to take to start making the transition from self-employed to business owner?
Document. At the end of the day, like, there's going to be frameworks, right? And you go to coaching for frameworks. You go to coaching for the blueprint of things. At the end of the day, though, every single one of the businesses out there is different in its own way. So whatever you're doing, document everything. If you're not documenting, you're missing out on the biggest opportunity for freedom, which is going to be your own way of creating SOPs. In the fire department, we used to call them SOPs, standard operating procedures. And training people to come in. You can do a lot of damage as a solo agent if you bring in a VA, for example, a virtual assistant, right? Because they're going to be able to handle a lot of stuff that you don't want to handle right now. Bring somebody else in who can do transaction coordination. Now you have, a small team, but you're not bottlenecking yourself with 2 or 3 deals a month because you got to do all that paperwork. You can focus on what you're doing better, right? But you can't get to that point unless you have SOPs in place, unless you have a training format for people to come in and then follow after you. So it's one of the things that I've been doing for years. It's just documenting the way that I do anything, right? The way that okay, this is how we fill out a purchase agreement. This is how we do a purchase contract. This is how we open escrow. This is how you collect EMD. This is, what happens on the first 10 days of the inspection period. And then the fastest way to do that too is just click record on a screen share. Like that right there, man, has been, I picked that up years ago. I can't remember. I wish I could. I can't remember who put it out there, and then I just made a note of it, and then I started doing it. But that little action has paid itself back. I mean, a millionfold. There's programs out there that are super cheap. They're very reliable, like loom.com is one of them. Take that. It's like $10 a month or something, but it'll screen record whatever you're doing on your computer. You can talk over it. So you can explain literally what your fingers are doing. Right. It's just that simple. I mean, to create.
Now you're building repeatable processes. So when you bring on that first hire, you've got shit to show them, right?
Exactly. I mean,
they don't just have to figure it out.
You can delegate chaos, or you can delegate systems, right? You can scale chaos, or you can scale systems. One of the, simple as that. But you're not going to get out of the hustle if you have to train your people over. What happens if they leave? Say that you have somebody that's with you 6 months and you spend 3 months training that person. Then they said, you know what, this is the hell with this. It's not for me. And they leave. Now you got to start all over again. However, if you have a database of information, of SOPs, stuff that you're doing, this is the way that I do things. Give them the link. You know what I mean? It really becomes as simple as that. And then you have that. You come into it from a supportive standpoint, as opposed to, you know, having to spend the 8 hours a day training that person.
Yeah, I think this is a great idea to make that hiring process smoother. I also heard you say, VAs, if you want to start without spending a lot. I would argue that you're better off hiring too soon than too late. And, if you're an agent, if you're a wholesaler, if you hire too soon, guess what? You have more time to systemize. You've got more time to train them up. Maybe it's less bottom line for a month, 2, 3, even 4, but who cares? You will scale it faster and probably smarter if you're making the hires on the early side, right? Because if you wait too long, that's just dangerous. Now you're busy, you need someone, you lower your standards, you don't have time to
yeah, you definitely got to hire
train them.
You got to hire before you're bottlenecked. When you're bottlenecked, you're just giving them, shit to handle. But yeah, it really comes down to having the awareness, right? Okay, I'm gonna need help. Things are moving fast. Things are moving at this pace. In 2 months, I'm not gonna have any time at all for myself, for anything. Thinking from it, from that standpoint, or just go out there and get coaching, get a blueprint, right? But it's at the end of the day, like, it really comes down to having that those habits, building up those habits as you start rolling on your business. Not because you have a business that's not producing millions. It doesn't mean that you can't start to be systematic about the way you do things. I'm big on lifestyle entrepreneurship. I'm big on my time. I'll protect my time, I think, more than I protect my money. It's just because it's that valuable. So what do I do about it? I create systems and I delegate those systems. And yeah, the team is going to come in and they're going to help you fine tune that stuff because they're in it. They're going to see things from a different perspective. They're going to say, oh, here, I found this little thing that we're missing. We don't have it on the SOP. Okay, go ahead and add it. And now you have a more robust training process that's just more complete, right? But you're leveraging the people that you already have, as you're bringing them in. It really comes down to that. And it takes a while, man. I see it, from a lot of students. They just want to, they come into, coaching with the mentality that they're going to be able to hire right out of the gate and not do the trench work, and just kind of, hit the easy streak real quick without any experience. And that's a fallacy. Like that, you have to get experience. You have to get real world experience to operate a real world business. You can't run it off of just theory. Like, it's not going to happen.
When did you start the real estate brokerage? Because you built up this wholesaling, flipping business. What led you to start the brokerage?
I was doing a lot of marketing and I was getting a lot of leads for listings.
Right.
Yeah, and I wanted to get paid on them, right? So I went and got my license. I was like, all right, cool. I think I can monetize with this. I'm gonna go get my license, and I started doing listings. So we would market for distressed properties. If the seller, if there wasn't a problem there with the seller that we could help them out with, they would go retail, right? And I was pushing these leads to other agents and whatnot. It just made sense. I'm gonna go get my license, whatever I can, wholesale. I'll just go ahead and then I'll list it. And I did that. I had a transaction coordinator, so it wasn't taking up all my time, right? And I wasn't bottlenecking myself. After a while, I was like, you know what? I don't think I want to do a lot of listings anymore. I'm just gonna get my broker's license. And I transferred, some of those models that I already had built out for my wholesale business into the brokerage. And it's processes, it's frameworks, right? The same way that I was going through a wholesale listing, I just had to pivot a couple of things on the technical side of things, and then transfer that framework to lead generation in the traditional space, lead generation, license compliance, and all that stuff, right? But the framework is similar. So it just kind of, right now my wholesale business feeds the real estate brokerage. The real estate brokerage feeds the wholesale business because a lot of times we can't list. Oh, guess what? I'll buy it from you too. So it just like it created this whole ecosystem. Again, between the three companies.
Yeah, I like that idea. I feel like wholesalers generate a ton of leads, and I don't know the ratio, but probably for every one wholesale deal you get, you're going to end up with 5, 10 leads that could be
Yeah.
listing leads, right?
Yeah. I mean,
So,
that's not far-fetched. It's not
yeah.
far-fetched at all. You have, 5, 10 listing leads that are going to be able to follow up with, and then just create that relationship. Right. So now what we do is we'll generate those leads on the wholesale side. If it's not something that we can work, we'll transfer them over to the real estate side and have agents work on those round robin, and then they knock it out. But yeah, it's at the end of the day, like it's not being in the hustle. Hustle is a season, man. It's not a business strategy. It's one thing to understand. It's a season. It's going to get you off the ground. We need that tenacity. We need that grit. We need that fire in the belly to come in and then just, help us take down doors and kick some ass. But it's not sustainable. You can't go like that for 10, 15 years. That's why you see people be very successful and then they just fizzle out. People get tired.
Oh, yeah.
People get frustrated.
I like that. I like that saying there. The hustle's a season, not a business.
Absolutely. 100%. And understanding that it's gonna push you to create a foundation faster. It's gonna push you to, okay, cool. How can I do this right now, but also build on automating it? How can I automate, delegate, so I can elevate my lifestyle? And simple questions like that are gonna, they're gonna make a big dent in the way that you do decisions.
What's the growth been like at the brokerage? I know it's just been a few years, but how describe the growth of that.
We have a small team. I don't take on a lot of agents,
Yeah.
and I don't take on because it's time consuming. Again, the whole lifestyle entrepreneur, thing. And I'm the DB, I'm the designated broker. We have transaction coordinators and whatnot, but we have right now we're at 16 agents. They all do fix and flip. They all do wholesaling. They all do everything. Right. So there's a lot of production happening within that small amount of agents. And what I do is, at this stage, I come in almost from a consultant standpoint. So I'm able to consult them and coach them, and they generate revenue. We get broker's fees, and I do the same thing on the student base for wholesaling. So that's kind of like my job now, right? All these companies are running, but I come in from a consultant standpoint, not an actual implementator.
Do they do like traditional buyer and seller rep, or are they mostly focused on their own deals?
No, they do all of it. I mean, they do. Heck, we do creative. I teach them how to do creative financing, how to structure commercial deals, there's a deal out there. We're going to find a way to structure it. So it's a good, well-rounded, approach to operate. Like, for example, right now we're working on a couple of different properties. Tempe, Arizona, where ASU is. It's a high. It's a highly desirable area. We just locked up a deal over there. It's 2.5. It's going to be a big solid deal. And then we have another resort that we just locked up in south of Tucson. That's going to be a $9 million acquisition. So there's still, there's a number of things happening, right, that are outside the wheelhouse. However, we're closing residential stuff. We're closing small multifamily on a regular basis.
What are your growth plans for the brokerage? Do you want to keep it at, similar size, or do you see it getting bigger?
This year it's going to get bigger. This
Okay.
year, we're actually going to work on recruiting. I'm interviewing a couple of people already come in that actually take that on and have an intentional approach on the recruiting process. Why? Because we have the foundations lined up. So we have, I like streamline. I like linear thinking. I like onboarding. Have somebody come in at this point, they do this, and that, and then they come out at that point with a check. Right. And that's how I wanted to get the brokerage before I focused on any of the growth. Because anytime you bring a new agent in, you're going to have to coach, you're going to have to train. So it's going to be time consuming. Right. the best way to get around that stuff is to have a good solid foundation of learning as they come in. So now we do have a streamlined process where they come in, fill out the application, they go through the pre-qualification process to see if we vibe in the culture and make sense. Jump in. They have a whole training program they're going to go through with support and all that stuff, but it's not going to take out my personal time. So that's one of the things that I was really watching out for. And that's finally set up. So it's set up, and we have, broker support calls on a weekly basis. And it really comes down to spending time where it matters, as opposed to, spending, 2 or 3 hours showing the tasky things. None of that is possible if you don't have SOPs in place.
So I think the brokerage, the wholesaling business, the flip business, all great ways to make income. The challenge with those is, it's volatile. It could go away, and you have to work at it, right?
Yeah.
Compared to deals you hold. So are you doing anything to earn regular monthly passive or semi-passive income from real estate?
Yeah. So do buy and hold. I sold some of my acquisitions. I'm pivoting and not really getting out of it, but right now I think it's a good opportunity for me to cash out on the equity that I had on some of those properties. And I'm putting a lot of money into SaaS, software as a service. So I built an operating system, which is software to manage my wholesale fix and flip operation. That transfers over again to the traditional real estate side. So I built a software for that. We're in the process of finalizing the beta version of that. And that's recurring income. That's membership based. It's a little different than a traditional buy and hold, right?
Sure.
But that's the pivot that I'm coming into it now. One thing that I'm actively in the hunt for is commercial properties. I want to buy and hold more on the commercial side of things. Office space, retail, executive offices, warehouse, that type of stuff.
Awesome. Well, you have a lot of exciting stuff going on, so I'm sure if you put that thought out into the world, you will find a way to make it happen. Before we wrap up, I always like to end with a HyperFast round. If you're ready for some rapid fire questions and answers.
Let's do it.
All right. What's your biggest piece of advice to a new real estate investor?
Think big. Think big. Whatever you're thinking, think bigger. It's the possibilities are endless once you start taking those actions, massive action moving forward. And you don't have to know the all the ins and outs. The process is going to start to reveal itself to you as you take those steps forward, as you take those actions. But yeah, and think big. I mean, that's at the end of the day, that's when it pulls you instead of you pushing towards a goal.
What about a new real estate agent? What would you tell them?
If you're going to look for mentoring or you're going to join a brokerage, make sure they have something to add of value to you. All right. You're not their employee. They are your employee. The broker works for you. Make sure they're supporting with, trainings. They're available if you call, that sort of thing. And then at the end of the day, this is going to be your own business, right? You can't put it all. Yeah, they work for you, but you can't put it all on them. You have to go out there and actually prospect. You have to allocate your time, which is one of the most important things I think to do. Allocate your time throughout the day to generate new business, not just follow-ups or do tasky work where you're working on spreadsheets and figuring out your CRM and all that kind of, your logo and all that stuff. None of that matters if you don't have any business, all right? So allocate your time. And the ratio for us is 60-40. So 60% of the time it's focused on generating new business, whether that is, reaching out to expired listings, it's, going to meetups and reaching out to new potential clients. And then the other 40% is following up on old relationships, referral business, and that sort of thing. So 60-40, break it down like that, and find a good supporting brokerage. It's going to work for you.
All right. What's the biggest challenge you've had in business and how did you overcome it?
Ooh, funding. Actually, two. I mean, no money, starting with no money. Mm-hmm. It's a two-part answer, but the first one was no money. I had no cash to start off when I launched the first business, and I was 21 years old, and that was a transportation business. But I spent a lot of time putting together the ins and outs of what I was going to do, the whole action plan. not necessarily a business plan, but it was an action plan of the things that I needed to check off to do and actually get to a place where I was going to be profitable. I got that, and then I squatted up. I went to somebody who actually had cash, presented the whole idea. I became the workhorse. They became the money, and between the two, combining the two. The two sides, I mean, we're able to create a business. Clarify your process. All right, if you're aiming for something, if you're aiming for a certain amount of revenue, what do you have to do? Reverse engineer your goal. What do you have to do to get to that point? If you want to, I don't know, bring in $250,000 next year in commissions, okay, what's the average amount of commissions in your, for your area? Okay, I don't know, say it's $10,000. Okay, cool. How many homes do you need to sell, or transactions do you need to have in order to get to that point? Okay, well, it's 25. All right. So if it's 25, how many do I need a month? All right, I need 2.3, transactions a month to get to that 25. All right, cool. What do I need to do to get 2.3 deals a month? And what does my marketing need to look like? Who do I need to reach out in my immediate sphere? And then start tracking that, but reverse engineer your goal. You can't do it if you don't have a target. You're gonna hit nothing, right? Or everything, whatever you want to call it. But you got to have something that you aim for. And that can be a hard concept as you're getting started, as you're getting, really going with things, because there's a lot of stuff going on. And the second part of that, it was really the belief part, the mindset. I am worthy of this. This is something that I can do. I can come in and crush it. That to me was a big, big battle.
All right. What would we most likely find you doing when you're not working on your business?
Coming up with new shit to do. I'm curious. I'm a very, very curious person. Yeah, I have hobbies. I go to the gym. I like to, roll in jiu-jitsu. I mean, I do all kinds of stuff, but at the end of the day, my playground is really what I do. I love coaching. I love helping people out. I love breaking paradigms. Because I come from a paradigm background. I come from a space where $30,000 used to be the achievers track. You know what I mean? And as you get out of that small town vibe, as you get out of that, that limited belief, things become brighter, things become realistic, opportunities start to pop up left and right. And I think that's a beautiful world to live in. So if you don't find me actually working one of the businesses, you're going to find me coaching somebody else. You're going to find me helping and empowering entrepreneurship, which is what I do. That's my purpose.
All right. Last question. What are you most excited about in 2022?
Honestly, the professional growth that I think we're coming across. We're at a transition right now. As your business evolves, you have different levels, right? And each one of those levels, or in between those levels, there's transitions. The one that we're about to come across is going to bring us to a level 5 business. And the transition just happened to line up to the beginning of the year. So the beginning of the year, beginning mid-January, probably, it's going to be, we're going to be looking at a couple of bigger acquisitions, reallocating some of those resources and then placing them into the other companies. And I love growing as a team. So I think it's one of the things that I'm the most excited about. Yeah. And the fact that I don't have to sacrifice any of my personal lifestyle to get to that space.
Awesome. Well, that's exciting. We certainly wish you well on that journey, making that happen. Before we wrap up, if people want to learn or connect with you, how should they do it? And then maybe you can put the link for that PDF that you have available for our listeners as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm pretty active in social media. My Instagram is Rafael Cortez, CEO. That's RAFAEL CORTEZ. CEO, and you can find me there on YouTube. I have a lot of content out on YouTube, strategies on mindset, on entrepreneurship, on wholesaling and real estate investments. It's all free content. It's all out there. And then if you want that download, the website to go to is reiwholesaling.com. Yeah, but you can find me anywhere under Rafael Cortez, CEO.
Awesome. We'll go to reiwholesaling.com, check out that guide, connect with Rafael on social media. Thank you once again. This has been amazing. It's just been cool to see what you've been able to do across so many parts in the real estate industry and the ecosystem you've built, and then sharing that, the systemization, how to optimize it with our listeners. So thank you for that. To all of our listeners and viewers out there, thank you for listening or watching if you're on YouTube. Please do me a favor and share this with someone that you think could benefit from hearing or watching it as well. And leave us some comments, give us some feedback, let us know what you liked and didn't like. We will see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the HyperFast Show. Subscribe to us if you want to make sure you get the latest and greatest HyperFast shows. And remember, we love reviews. Reviews help us bring better and better guests and improve our shows. So give us the good, the bad, and the ugly. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we will see you next time.
Hey guys, thanks for sticking around to the end. I hope you enjoyed that video, and if you want to see more, click right here. And if you want 100 real estate tips from my best-selling book, click right here to download them instantly. And if you're new to this channel, click below to subscribe and turn on post notifications so you don't miss out. And leave some comments about what you think on the videos.